Hey, it's Nancy. Before we begin today, I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. On a seemingly ordinary weekday in February of 2000, Tara McDonald was working a late-night shift at a Calgary made-to-order sandwich shop. At 25, she had worked in the service industry for 6 years and been everything from a server to a manager and now a sandwich artist. She had just started her job at the Subway a few weeks earlier. Tara told a friend, who told her mother, that her bosses didn't want employees chatting or being distracted from their duties, so there wasn't a working phone that dialed out at the restaurant. So, apparently, she had made a habit out of bringing her own phone from home and plugging it into the landline at work. There was comfort in knowing she could call a friend or her mother in case of an emergency, especially when she had to work alone late at night. Tara spoke to her mother pretty much every day, and she was looking forward to seeing her the following day. That night, business at the sandwich shop had been pretty slow. Only a few people had stopped by in the past couple of hours. But at about 11 p.m., there was a spill, so she got out the mop and began to clean up. As she scrubbed back and forth, sopping up fountain pop on the floor, she was startled by the sound of the door opening. Then, her whole world went black. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. Today, on Crime Beat, I share the shocking details of what happened next. This is The Night Shift. Stephen Jelly and his friend were happy to be inside watching movies on Thursday, February 17th. It was cold and blustery in Calgary, but eventually, the young men got hungry. They braved the weather and walked 2 blocks to get something to eat. As they approached their local Subway, Stephen and his friend noticed a sign on the door that read, "Less than $50 in till. Clerk cannot open safe." They looked at each other and joked about how pointless it would be to hold up the sandwich shop. But seconds later, they found a young woman lying in a pool of blood. Stephen rushed to her aid and started performing CPR, while his friend ran to the phone on the counter to call 911.
I believe she was robbed. We found her on the floor. She was hit in the back of the head. There was blood all over the floor, and she was vomiting.
The woman was badly injured, and the 2 Good Samaritans did their best to help her. Just minutes later, EMS arrived, and the victim was rushed to hospital, where doctors declared her deceased.
This is now 100% a homicide investigation.
That's Calgary Police Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien. The lead detectives involved in this case are now retired, so he'll be helping me to share this story. Back in 2000, he was a patrol officer, and the impact of this high-profile investigation and the circumstances surrounding it was felt citywide. The night it happened, Deputy Chief O'Brien said Calgary Police dispatched every available resource to the sandwich shop.
The entire Subway restaurant and parking lot is now part of the crime scene. So we've called in our forensic crime scenes unit. Again, they're going to take photographs. They're going to look at what evidence they can collect. They're going to look for fingerprints. They're going to look for swabs. Even back then, we had DNA that we were looking for.
The restaurant was in disarray. Sandwich wrappers, napkins, and receipts were scattered all over the floor.
It looks like this is a robbery that has gone horribly wrong.
Investigators had found a purse with a wallet and ID on the counter, which helped them to identify the victim as Tara McDonald.
This is a significant event in our community. You have a young 25-year-old woman working alone in what should be a safe job making sandwiches for people. And so it's not lost on anybody that responded or anybody working in the city that this was a significant event. And it was really all hands on deck to do whatever we could as quickly as we could.
26 years ago, surveillance cameras were not as common as they are now, so not surprisingly, there was no CCTV at the sandwich shop.
It's very different in today's world with all of the cameras, social media, people with their phones, people with dash cams, but we didn't have any of that back then. And certainly, although there'd be the odd camera, like we talk about perhaps at a bank or at liquor stores, some of the businesses that, unfortunately would be robbed regularly, they would invest in cameras. But it just wasn't as common back then as it is now. And so this was a whodunit.
Police checked with neighboring businesses as well, but also came up empty. Desperate for clues, they brought in the canine unit. Sure enough, the specially trained dogs found a track, a trail of coins, which they followed to the nearby residential neighborhood of Forest Lawn. To give you a better sense of where all this happened, you should know that Calgary is divided into 4 quadrants: northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. Many people are likely familiar with Calgary's 17th Avenue Southwest, which is famous for its nightlife and restaurants. It's better known as the Red Mile. The name comes from the Flames hockey team's 2004 Stanley Cup run, when thousands of fans flooded the street in red jerseys. And now, more than 20 years later, it's still known by that name. But there is another 17th Avenue in the city's southeast. It also has a second name, known as International Avenue, because of its diverse businesses and customer base. It was rebranded in an effort to change people's perceptions because, for decades, the area was riddled with crime. In the early 2000s, I reported on dozens of incidents in one of its neighborhoods. Forest Lawn has a wide mix of housing in the community, from townhouses and apartments, including a lot of what's considered affordable housing. And then there are bungalows from the 60s and 70s, older duplexes, and fourplexes. It's home to a lot of longtime residents with meticulously kept yards. Over the years, I've met so many of these people who are proud of the community, and several have given me buttons that say, "I heart Forest Lawn," which I still have. As I put together this episode, I watched a story I wrote in the early 2000s, where I interviewed a mother of 4. From her yard, she could see a sex worker stroll that attracted a steady stream of traffic. She said all too often she had found drug paraphernalia and worried about safety as break-ins and robberies were rampant. At that time, a growing number of properties had been neglected, and Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien said illicit drugs brought both dealers and users to the area, which created a never-ending cycle of criminal activity.
Back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, there were different drugs that were going around our communities. Crack cocaine was one of them, and it was very addictive, and we saw a lot of offenders that were very addicted to that drug and would do pretty much anything it took to get money to buy more.
I remember spending several overnight shifts with police on ride-alongs. The officers took my photographer and I inside some of the most prolific drug dens in the city, where we saw stained carpets littered with used needles and condoms. I interviewed one woman who wanted to remain anonymous, who said she was the boss of that particular flophouse, a rule that kept her off of the streets.
Do I sell crack? Hard question. I don't think so. Not with those 2 cops standing back there, I don't. Actually, that's what I do now rather than sell my ass. What happens in a crack house? People come in, buy crack, smoke it, and leave. I used to have an actually really good job, and I made, $12, $50, $13 an hour, depending on the week, and my addiction overcame my paycheck. And one day I was walking back home. I used to live on the other end of the stroll, and about 4 or 5 people stopped and offered me a great deal of money, and I'm like, wow, what a way to make a living. It's easy money.
I should note, the revitalization of the area has brought new businesses and more foot traffic. But while writing this, I spent time with Deputy Chief O'Brien in this exact area. And to be honest, I saw a lot of the same issues today.
You know what, there's been a lot of work done to try to clean up the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, we still have people that are homeless. We still have people that are addicted to drugs, and it's just a different drug. So instead of cocaine, it's now meth, it's now fentanyl, and every drug has its own side effects. And certainly with meth and with fentanyl, we see increased violence, and we still see that. We're a big city. We see it in all big cities in North America, but certainly here we still see it. We saw it right now, right here. So.
You might be thinking, wow, Nancy, you've taken quite a detour here. But as this case unfolds, you'll understand why these details matter. So let's go back now to the subway where Tara McDonald was killed, which was located on the main strip of 17th Avenue Southeast. Police dogs had followed a trail of coins from the crime scene just a few hundred meters to Forest Lawn, where Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien said investigators believed the offender had fled following the attack.
And so the working theory is that the coins probably fell out of a cash register or a cash drawer that may have come from the subway.
As officers found coins or pieces of what appeared to be parts of a cash register, they would send crime scenes investigators to photograph and gather evidence. They also looked for fingerprints and other forensics.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we examined the evidence that we had at this point, it was still a whodunit. We did not have a name of an offender.
Officers scoured the area through the night, and as the sun came up, they retraced their steps to make sure they hadn't missed anything in the dark.
Our number one priority is to get that offender in custody. That offender has killed an innocent individual already, and who knows what they're capable of.
On the morning of February 18th, in the city of Lethbridge, which is a little over 200 kilometers south of Calgary, Deb Dorr was getting ready to leave her house. She had a 2.5-hour drive ahead of her, and she was excited to see her daughter, Tara McDonald. Earlier that week, they had confirmed plans over the phone, and before they hung up, they said,
"Love you." We never ended a conversation without saying that.
But at about 7 that morning, Deb's phone rang.
My ex-husband, who I hadn't talked to in, 6 or 7 years, phoned. He was sobbing, and he had said, "Hey, there's been a robbery, Tara's dead." And as he said that, I turned the TV on, and there's Tara on the TV because he had released her name to the press. So they had a picture and her name, as I'm being told, because the Lethbridge police hadn't got to us yet. So we went to the police station in Lethbridge, and I walked up to the front desk, and they had been notified, and they had said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Deb, we were just putting a few things together for you." I says, "Don't worry about it, I already know," and we left and came to Calgary.
Deb drove to the sandwich shop where she met with Calgary police homicide detectives.
They had just said that she was working alone, and they hadn't caught the person yet, but they had some leads, and that 2 young boys had tried to save her. They administered first aid and tried. Yeah, they knew there was robbery. The cash register was missing, and that they would keep me posted as soon as they knew anything. It was roped off, and there was hundreds of bouquets of flowers and teddy bears and everything outside the door. So
the makeshift memorial had been growing by the hour. Word of what had taken place inside the sandwich shop had spread, and the violent attack led every local newscast, just hours after Tara had died from her injuries in the hospital. That spurred a steady stream of strangers to stop at the scene and pay their respects to the young murder victim. Some had even worked at that very subway and were struck by the realization that this could have happened to them. Here again is Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien.
As a patrol officer at the time, even though I worked in a different part of the city, we spent a lot of time driving by Subways and other restaurants, other businesses that were open, where we knew that people were working by themselves, and partially to give them a sense of comfort that we're checking in on them, but partially because we wanted to be able to help, and it was a challenge because we didn't know who the offender was. We didn't have somebody to go out and locate and hunt down yet. And this was significant. It was early in my career, certainly as a patrol officer, but I remember it very, very well. And I remember stopping at lots of different places and just checking in on the employees.
Deb Dorr said she was overwhelmed with grief and felt helpless following her daughter's murder.
I think it must have been just in remote control. And that, because it was weeks later that it started to sink in.
She had no idea Tara had been scheduled to work alone at night. Deb was also shocked to learn that Tara routinely took her own home phone with her to the restaurant.
One of Tara's friends phoned me and said, "Did you get Tara's phone from work?" And I says, "She didn't have a cell phone, did she?" And she says, No. She used to unplug her phone from home and take to the subway because they fixed theirs so the staff couldn't call out, so they wouldn't be sitting on the phone all night.
Deb said she felt compelled to drive back to Calgary to confront the owners, Tara's former bosses.
And asked for Tara's phone. And they kind of took them back, kind of like, "Oh, what do you mean?" I says, "I know her phone's here. I want it."
Deb said she took Tara's phone and drove back to Lethbridge to confront her local politician.
And I walked in, Clint Dunford at the time, he was a Conservative member. And he was also the Labour minister, I believe. And he kind of slammed it down on his desk and explained the situation. And that's when they put a working telephone in the rules. But a working telephone wouldn't help Tara that night anyway, because I don't think she saw it coming.
Deb's referring to the fact that it appeared Tara had been mopping up a spill when she was attacked, and likely had no time to react, let alone defend herself. Tara's murder wasn't the first of its kind in Alberta. In 1993, 7 years earlier, Leilani Silva had been working alone at a Northeast Calgary convenience store when she was kidnapped. Silva was a former teacher in the Philippines and had hoped to one day teach in Canada as well. Her body was later located. She had been sexually assaulted and murdered. Then, a year after that, a mother of 5 had been working alone at a convenience store in a smaller rural community south of Calgary when she was abducted and murdered. Deb Dorr felt compelled to push for changes to legislation to better protect workers.
That an employer had to either have at least 2 people working and viable ways of contacting for help and working video cameras. Her sister had started a handwritten petition at a gas station in Lethbridge, and they had phoned and said, "Do you have more copies, or what are we gonna do? We filled up all the paper we have in the store." Most people were really receptive to the petition, so I'd get up every morning and go collect them, and other people were collecting them.
Deb said the petition gave her a renewed purpose at a time when she felt completely broken. On February 26, 2000, 9 days after Tara was killed, hundreds gathered in Lethbridge to remember her at a funeral in her hometown. Reverend Dale Lang spoke at the service. Just a year earlier, he had also felt the grief of losing a child when his own teenage son had been shot and killed at his high school in southern Alberta.
I'm really getting tired of evil. It's not going to be easy to live through. But God calls you to walk close with Him, and He will pour out His grace upon you. He will touch your hearts with his love, and you will have your memories of Tara to carry you through.
Tara's loved ones reminisced about her steely determination and how her strength had inspired others. They recalled how she had not only survived, but thrived following a traumatic, life-changing accident when she was just 6 years old.
She stuck a piece of cardboard into the furnace and it ignited her. She was burnt from her neck to her knees and her arms from her shoulders to her elbows and both her hands.
For more than a decade, Tara was in and out of hospitals undergoing reconstructive surgery.
It was awful, but she came through it with such a phenomenal attitude.
When others might have hidden their scars or been overwhelmed by them, Tara wore them like a badge of honor.
Like on her hands, she went and snuck away and got some tattoos to cover the ribbing. And I mean, she was fine with wearing a bikini. And I says, "Oh, you don't mind?" She says, "Well, if they don't like it, tough. They don't have to look." And that was just, this is me, you know.
She also had a compassionate heart and aspired to be a police officer.
I came home from work one day and there's a homeless person sleeping on the couch. I said, "Who's that?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "How did you get here?" "Well, I brought him home. It's not right that people sleep outside." And she just would help anyone if she could.
Now, her life had been stolen for the pittance that the robber got away with. Meanwhile, back in Calgary, the hunt for a killer intensified. Deputy Chief Cliff O'Brien said information from the medical examiner pushed the investigation forward.
So the autopsy of Tara McDonald indicate that she died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head, and that it was a blunt instrument that had struck her, and the investigators believed that it was likely a hammer.
Police decided not to disclose details of the murder weapon to the public.
As you know, holdback is very crucial to an investigation, and it's a significant piece of evidence that, or information that only the killer and the police investigators would know.
The weapon was still missing, but the hammer would be significant in this case. Longtime Alberta prosecutor Jonathan Hack says, despite what people might assume, from his experience, a hammer is not usually a weapon of choice.
If a weapon is going to be used, it would typically be a knife or a gun. Hammers are convenient, though, because they're not illegal. It's not illegal to walk down the street possessing a hammer, and it's a very effective, silent weapon.
The hammer also stood out to investigators because there had been another similar violent attack just 2 hours before Tara's murder, down the street from the subway.
He was quite seriously injured. He also suffered a depressed skull fracture, and he had several additional hammer hits.
Could these two violent attacks be connected?
Well, the sense of urgency now is quite high, because what we have is two innocent victims that have been viciously attacked with a hammer, and clearly one is deceased. So this is there going to be a third?
That's next time on Crime Beat. Crime Beat is written and produced by me, Nancy Hixt, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Audio editing and sound design is by Rob Johnston. Special thanks to photographer-editor Danny Lantella for his work on this episode. And thanks to Chris Bassett, the VP of Network Content, Production and Distribution, and Editorial Standards for Global News. I would love to have you tell a friend about this podcast. There are 7 seasons of stories you can listen to and share. And please consider rating and reviewing Crime Beat on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can find me on Facebook at Nancy Hixt Crime Beat and on Instagram at nancy.hixt. That's nancy.hixt. Thanks again for listening. Please join me next time.